My humble salutations at Swami's divine lotus feet. And Sai Ram brothers and sisters, what a wonderful day, what a wonderful venue to talk in. It's such a beautiful place. And you guys really set me up because, you never want to follow somebody who is incredible, and you make me follow Swami's talk. I almost don't need to give the talk anymore because Swami said everything that I have to say. So he's always taking all my words. So I will probably just be more of a reiteration of what Swami said. But, I took this opportunity to kind of think about seva and think about the different types of seva and, maybe put it in a different form that, Swami has already talked about. So the topic of my talk today is seva through daily living. Have the first slide? So Swami says seva, there you go. Next slide. Is selfless service. And, one of the sayings that Swami says is help ever, hurt never. And it's something to remember, right? It's like the Hippocratic Oath. You never want to cause harm to people. And this service needs to be done with dedication and compassion. And the important thing, as Swami has said, is that you cannot expect an outcome. So there should be no expectation of an outcome or recognition. You may end up getting it, but you should not expect it. And that is not why you should be doing the seva. You should be doing it because of inner peace and what is the right conduct and what's the right thing, but not expecting an outcome or recognition. Should not be doing it for a personal reward. And so you need to go deep inside, and the person that you need to reward is yourself, right? Swami's in you, and that's what the arrows say. You have to go inside and reward your inner Swami. What you do should not have external recognition. It really needs to make you feel like you've done the right thing. There are different forms of seva. Donations, of course, are critically important. Without donations, you can't have beautiful buildings like this and all the work that we need to do. There's volunteerism, where you can volunteer, and kind of the epitome of that is my mother. I mean, she taught me everything about volunteering, and she's 83 and she has problems with her hands and her legs, and she still does all the volunteer work in Arizona. But then what I want to concentrate today is on kind of the inner seva, right? Things that you don't see externally, but are critical to dharma or the right action. Next slide, please. And for that, I'm going to start here. So this is Swami Super Specialty Hospital in Puttaparthi. It's on top there, and they perform completely free surgery. The one thing missing in this entire hospital is the billing department. And they have performed thousands and thousands of surgeries, particularly open heart surgeries, completely free of cost over the last 3 decades. Now, I'm going to, next slide, please. So when we talk about inner seva and doing things without recognition, I want to point out some people here. So this is a group of the professionals who work in that hospital in cardiac surgery. Dr. Nilayam Desai has been there for about 25 years, 30 years, and the others have been there since the hospital actually opened. They were handpicked by Swami to be there in the hospital, and they perform incredible service, right? They lovingly take care of their patients, and they've taught me so much about how you can give love to patients. Now, one could say, yes, they were there because Swami was there. They were able to interact with Swami, and that's what kept them there. But they've all been there after Swami's left as well, and they continue their incredible, dedicated work. And that is kind of true inner seva, right? They're not getting the external recognition for it from Swami, but they know that's the right thing to do. And even most of them are retired, but they're still working there with selfless service. So to me, that's kind of the epitome of what you call a selfless service. Next slide, please. Swami's given me the opportunity to volunteer there since 1995. I've tried to go every year, of course, during COVID, not been able to. And people say, oh, it's great, you do volunteer work, that's fantastic, right? So is that true seva? And, this talk has had me thinking about this. And yes, maybe I volunteer there, but I did get things out of it, right? I got to be closer to Swami. I was able to interact with him, talk to him with his interviews. And it's funny, Swami says, you take one step towards me and I'll take 10 steps towards you. And this has been absolutely true because it's made me a better surgeon. There are things that I do in the operating room in Chicago that people don't know how you do it. And a lot of that is because of all the very complicated surgeries and the pathologies and the different things we've seen actually at Swami's hospital. And Swami is actually transformed me. Swami always makes fun of me. He says, oh, this is my transplant surgeon, my coconut tree transplant surgeon, and he'll tell people, but I'm the only one who can actually transform hearts. And that's what Swami's done. Next slide, please. So my first real interaction with Swami was in 1995 during the 3rd International Cardiovascular Symposium. And we had an interview, and there was about 20 people there of real luminaries in cardiac surgery, people like Donald Ross, who's known for his procedure. I mean, there are people there that have written the books, and I was a very young cardiac surgeon then. And Swami would go from person to person and say, well, this is this person, and he's done this, and he's a great surgeon, and this is a great surgeon. And then he looked at me and he said, oh, he's a good surgeon. And, I said, okay, well, this is good. Swami's giving me the opportunity to become a great surgeon, because I am young. I have to reach the status of these luminaries. And then it was interesting because then right afterwards, Swami gave a discourse. And during that discourse, he talks about great surgeons, people who are well-versed in books and who do research and who can talk well. But he says Swami likes good doctors. And what is a good doctor, right? A good doctor is somebody, as Swami is defined, who listens to patients, who has compassion towards patients, who cares about patients and goes that extra mile towards patients. So that has kind of resonated in me. And every time I see a patient, if I'm in a hurry or I'm trying to get away, I can still hear Swami's voice in my mind say, he's a good doctor. So what is this inner seva? That inner seva is going beyond what are requirements and expectations. We're all compensated well as physicians, right? But what are we doing beyond our compensation? What are we doing things that are not compensated for that particular patient to make them feel better? And that is what is right. That is doing what is right and not what is convenient. As a cardiac surgeon, you may say, well, I'm going to do that extra bypass graft. I'm not going to get paid extra for it. It's going to take more time, but it's the right thing to do, right? You strive for perfection because that's what Swami would want you to do, right? If you have, a lot of surgeons may say, this valve is kind of moderately not working well. Okay, we don't need to take care of it. We can get away with it. Or you can say, well, I'm going to do what is absolutely right for the patient and try to make them as perfect as possible. So, and when you talk about helping others in seva, there's patient care, and I being a cardiac surgeon, have different patient care than other doctors, or even different things that we do in our work. But I can equate things to patient care, and the one things that I would say is, we take care of patients who refuse blood transfusion. They're the Jehovah's Witness patients, and they're really discriminated against, right? Like a lot of surgeons or teams don't want to take care of them because they're very handicapped when you can't give them blood. In cardiac surgery, about 50%, 60% of patients get blood, so you immediately become a very high-risk patient population. And it's interesting because I was in Puttaparthi. The first time I went to Puttaparthi, we did a very complicated case, and I turned around and I said, well, let's give the blood products, let's give the blood, the plasma and the cryoprecipitate, and they all looked at me and goes, sir, we don't have a blood bank, or we don't have all those things. I said, oh, okay, how are you going to take care of this bleeding? He said, don't worry, we have volunteers who donate blood. So I said, well, that's not going to be enough. So they came back with the unit of blood, and they gave that blood, and boom, everything just stopped bleeding, right? That was my first thing about, there's magic about warm, fresh human blood. And I had never seen something work like that before. And then we have these Jehovah's Witness patients who refuse blood, and we use some of that ideas in terms of storing their own blood just before surgery, and then after surgery we can get them to stop bleeding. And so some of the things that I actually learned in Puttaparthi I use now, And for the Jehovah's Witness patients, they come in from all over the country, and they come to us because they're discriminated against, right? They're underserved. People don't want to take care of them because they're too difficult. But something that we do at University of Chicago, because Swami's taught me, that you have to go beyond. So when we go beyond, they take 50% longer to do, they hurt my back more, they're a lot more stress, but you're helping people. And that is the type of inner seva that we all should be doing throughout our life in everything that we do. How else can you help others? You can teach people, right? And we can instruct our residents, our fellows, our students. And you don't know exactly, again, it can't be our expectation that they become everything that we tell them to do. The expectation should be that we're teaching them, and whatever they pick up, they can pick up. And of course, there's mentoring, right? So this is another thing, it's uncompensated. You get a lot of people, students from all over the world, kind of ask for advice. And spend time with them, right? Spend time, sit down, talk to them. The 10 minutes, the 15 minutes you may spend with them, may actually end up changing their whole career, their pathway. You don't know how you're going to affect somebody, but you will affect people. And you'll find out 30 years later that they've been affected in different ways. And so that mentorship is actually an interesting concept. And, next slide, please. So this is the University of Chicago Medicine. The 4th floor there is our heart and vascular floor. It's like a heart hospital within a hospital. And there's a picture there of our executive director, Colleen. So Colleen's interesting, right? She's not a Sai devotee. She's not religious, but she's the most spiritual person, although she doesn't think she's spiritual, right? And so what we've been able to do around that entire floor is create a sense of seva, create a sense of passion. And, next slide, please. So this is kind of an example here. All our nurses on that floor will wear these shirts. And these shirts say, University of Chicago Heart and Vascular Center, but look at what it says underneath: love all, serve all. And that is the type of passion we're trying to instill in everybody on that floor when they give care to our patients who come in from all over the world. So next slide. So I'm going to end pretty quickly here. This is a letter from one of our patients, and it's a long letter, but next slide and the next slide. So I'm going to summarize here, right? It says, "Dear Dr. J and the Heart and Vascular team." So this patient, this is the wife writing about her husband, and her husband was a heart transplant patient. He was turned down in multiple hospitals because he was very complex. No one wanted to spend that extra time and energy to take care of him. And he says, and I'll read it here, it goes, this is paraphrased from her long letter, right? So it goes, "You are all kind, positive, and gave us hope. Mark and I have been at Cleveland Clinic, University of Michigan, University of Pittsburgh, and other large hospitals. Mark and I agree that the incredible treatment, caring, and compassion you all showed Mark and I was unlike anything we've ever experienced at any other team, at any other hospital. It goes on to say, your healing comes from a place of love, commitment for caring for others as your life missions work. I feel a deep reverence for your spiritual way of life that's evidenced in your work, interaction with patients, families, and colleagues." Next slide, please. So that is seva, that's inner seva, that's deep seva, and I think that's something that's what Swami was talking about. We should all do that in our lives on a daily basis. Jai Sadam.